All right, hi everyone, I'm Michael Tressler. I'm a senior customer engineer from St. Petersburg, Florida, and I work for Microsoft. And if you sit up front, there's candy on the seats. So I'm trying to bribe people to up front so we can have more engagement. Feel free to interrupt me and ask questions in the middle. However, I will throw this box at you. There's a microphone on top. Speak into that to ask your questions so we can have it for the recordings. Level is 250-ish. So this was originally a 200 level, but I can't do 200 level sessions. It's too marketing for me still, so I've put some more complex things in the back. So what's new in Teams device? And again, new people sit up front where the candy is. Otherwise, I'll have to throw it at you. Teams Admin Center. Jamie Stark gave us an overview of what Teams Admin Center is at the keynote and what is happening with it. There are some new things, which he mentioned, but just to point out, they're branding devices. So collaboration bars is no longer in Teams Admin Center. It's been replaced by Microsoft Teams Rooms on Android. Teams Rooms is now Teams Rooms on Windows. And then panels, phones, and displays are available. So if you're not spending a lot of time in Teams Admin Center, please do. And if you got confused, that's what's the first thing that's new within the past few months. This is brand new. I was just made aware of it on Friday. I had added the slide, thought I was done with my deck, but just added this. We have added health impact of peripherals to Teams Admin Center. Take an example where you disconnect the camera routinely, right? It's a nice camera, the room doesn't get used much, but Teams Rooms is up and running. That will report a critical error that the camera is missing. So now when you're searching for your critical errors, you got to mentally ignore all these rooms. Now you can go into Teams Admin Center, oops, wrong one, and change the health impact from critical to non-urgent or no impact. So now when you look in Teams Admin Center at your estate of Teams Rooms devices, and you filter on critical, you get the ones that are actually critical, not the ones where you intentionally remove devices or intentionally make changes to your configuration. Or if you're like me and you have a smart dock with just an HDMI loopback and there's actually no monitor attached, I can now say, yeah, I know there's no actual display attached to this Teams Rooms. So a really cool feature. That's the newest one we're going to get to. By the way, I do highly recommend Ignite next week. There is going to be a session showing what's actually new, because this is what's new in the last 3 months, because I'm not allowed to say what's new from next week forward. So if you're wondering, like some super breakthrough sneaky stuff, I will not be able to tell you that. Anyway, remote provisioning, this was introduced maybe 2 or 3 months ago. This solves the issue of sharing passwords with desktop support. This is meant for common area phones, Teams Rooms on Android, and Teams panels. That's the use case for this. What this means is you buy, let's say, a new telephone, new Teams phone, you set it down on the desk in a remote office. For that phone to sign in, what you have to do is tell your IT person or your vendor or just your friend of IT the username and password of the common area phone account. Now you've leaked a password. May not be critical, but depending on your organization, you don't want to share those. What you can do instead is go into Actions, click Provision New Device, and upload the MAC address of that phone into Teams Admin Center, which then says, by the way, if you're going to use provisioning, when you receive your phones from shipping, write down all the MAC addresses. So you can then do this phase. Otherwise, you have to tell the other person, flip over, no, that's a serial number. No, that's a date. Yeah, the one with the colons. Nope, that's only 6 numbers. I need 12 or whatever it is. Thanks, 12. Thanks for the confirmation. Once you put it in there, then it'll show up. Ooh, face the other way. Which screen is this thing on? There we go. Then you'll see the MAC address is in here. And then when they go to the phone, they go to set the settings cog. Click that, and then there's like a provision of phone option. They click that, and then they type in this number that Teams Admin Center gives you. But there you go. That pairs that MAC address to your tenant, basically. So when they type in that code, that then puts that phone into your tenant, but that's it. There's nothing fancy that happens at that point. What you do next is then, and I don't have the screenshots for the real estate. There's a training. I got a video on YouTube showing this all in detail. There's a link that allows for remote sign-in. You click in Teams Admin Center, and it brings up the web sign-in experience that you're familiar with if you've ever done that, Microsoft.com/device login. You basically go there. Then I'm the administrator here running Teams Admin Center, so I then type in that username and password of the common area phone. the person on the remote end never sees that username and password. The phone then signs in, your common area phone is deployed without leaking any information. So that's provisioning. And then, yeah, so the phone signs in. So again, this is meant for common area phone, Teams panels, and Teams rooms, because for your end users, you shouldn't really know their username and password for your end users. And since you asked the first question, you get some Flavor Shot cheddar jalapeno Cheetos.
Thank you. Is there a way to do bulk updates for this?
Yeah, you can bulk provision by uploading a CSV file. You'll notice there's also this location field right there. So the provisioning code expires after 24 hours. So don't upload 1,000 phones and try to expect to do 100 a day, because then you'll have 100 done. The next 900, the provisioning code will have expired, so you have to create a new one. You can upload them all. You can then select, so you can bulk upload 1,000, select 50 of them to provision by clicking the Generate Verification Code button. And then that'll create that code, and that same code will get reused for the day. Then the next day there'll be a new code to get them provisioned. So that's that. Any other questions on provisioning? All right, Teams Display. Teams Display is a forgotten about device. It was kind of released, and I remember when it was released, we had Microsoft, we had this really cool hype video, and I remember everybody pretty much going, what? Why do I need this? A lot is happening in the Teams Display world. Pay attention to Ignite next week. That's all I can say. One thing that has been announced already, though, is hot desking. Now, hot desking has been around in phones since Skype for Business days and probably before that. Hot desking is basically, I'm signed in on my phone at my desk, right? I'm at my desk, and I leave for the day, or I'm gone for 2 days. Especially in this hybrid world, hot desking becomes a bigger thing. Now, you come into the office, look for a space, and okay, I'm going to work at this space. Oh, Michael is signed in. Well, I don't want to sign him out. I don't know if he's gone for the day or whatever. So I'm just going to go to settings, click hot desking, sign in as me. Now I get my phone number, I get my phone calls, all phone policies, all calling I'm allowed to do are in my session. Then depending on how you set it up as an administrator, after maybe 2 hours, the person on my phone gets signed out. And then when I come back the next day, I don't even know somebody hot desked on my phone. That's hot desking. And that's on Teams phones across the line. Why is there a big hot desking thing? And this is kind of how it works, just kind of this video flipping around. What is changing, or what is being added to hot desking for Teams displays? What is being added is the ability to go in and reserve the Teams display, like schedule it, not just ad hoc walk up. There's some things that are required to that. I'm going to hold off the details till Ignite for what licensing things you need to have that, what the additional features you get. But basically now you can reserve a phone. You could not do that before. You kind of had to just walk up and hope it was there. You could reserve a space, but not necessarily the device. So that is what's coming into Teams displays, is the ability to kind of schedule your hot desk session. Microphone up here.
Just
Hi.
on the reserve, is that through Outlook, or is that going to be through Teams itself?
It'll be through Exchange, so Outlook or Teams. That's best I understand. And there's a question in the back. Can you throw the microphone back to him? Or? Yeah, the question right now is it only on display, and as what I've been told, so far it's a display-only feature. But if you're wondering, there's more coming to displays. Neat has announced the Neat Frame, which is also running Teams display. Oh, I kind of stopped. So the Neat Frame, right, it is going to introduce portrait orientation. The current Lenovo ThinkSmart View only has landscape. And in early builds of the ThinkSmart View, there was portrait, but to get all the features working, they decided let's just punt on being able to flip the phone between portrait and landscape. They got all the features done. Now they've put the development into portrait mode. So now, depending on how you would like it, and I haven't seen this device. We don't have anyone from Neat here. I don't know if you can flip it to landscape if you want, or if it's stuck in portrait. I don't know. But the Neat device is coming. So what is a Teams display? A Teams display, think of it it is both an IP phone and the Teams mobile client glued together. To me, it's an excellent hybrid device for the hybrid workforce. So a lot of us are now tearing down the office we built in a closet or on the table. We still have to work from home, say 2 days a week, right? We're not fully 100% back. A Teams display is awesome because instead of now having to grab everything and put it back on your desk, you can work off your laptop. Like I can't work off this laptop screen. External monitor, this thing's way too small. I can't do it. But I could probably get away with a Teams display in this laptop because now all my Teams stuff is happening on a second screen. If you see on here, you can see meetings, you can do chats, you can see your Teams channels, you can do all of your team stuff. You can join meetings, you can share a video, you can upload PowerPoints, you can control the meeting, all the things you would expect from a Teams mobile experience. And you have excellent audio to make phone calls. So if you need it just as a phone, you can do it as a phone. And the price point on these things, or at least on the Lenovo one, I haven't seen the price point on the Neat, is very competitive with regular Teams phones. So if you've been sleeping on Teams display, I recommend you look at it again. There are a lot of new vendors joining this field. Some Neat I can announce, one or two I cannot announce right now, or at least I won't. At least I won't. They said it was okay at the booth, but I'm like, yeah, my superior said no, so I'm not going to. There's a lot coming to Teams display. So please take some time and look into how more use you can get out of a piece of equipment on your desk than just making phone calls or joining meetings. Teams panels. So Teams panels are the things that sit outside of a meeting room, and they'd let you know if there's a meeting happening or what the schedule is for the next meeting. That's what they do. They're very ultimately simple devices. If you sit up front, there's candy on the chairs. So that's what they do. They're pretty simple devices. They do run Android. They do run the Teams client. They show up in Teams Admin Center, fully manageable, just like any of our other Android devices. At release, we announced the ability for you to run custom apps. So here we are. We can see, like right now today, depending on what build you're on, go here, you only see like this L shape here that I'm drawing, and this part here is empty, and it stays empty until you put an app on there. So the app you could put on there, these are Teams apps. So you write them in the same format as any Microsoft Teams application that would show up within the Teams world. Right? It's not like you have to write some UWP using Python or some craziness. It's same way you write any other Teams app, you then just kind of publish it to the Teams panel, just like you would publish it to your users. What could you do with these things? There's a couple things. Feedback form for the room, so your employees go, hey, the room was dirty, or we're done with the room, please send maintenance, or please send somebody to clean it. Lights out, so can you send maintenance to clean the light? We need to order catering, like, hey, we ran out of things, or just, I don't know how fast the catering is, depending on your company, but it might take a while. Other things coming that were shown at release, and it is coming still, is if the meeting room is booked, it'll guide you, it'll show a map of your building to the next closest meeting room using Bing Maps API and a few other things. So all of that is coming and is in the latest release that was shipped. This is also released. You can hide meeting names in a bunch of places in the Teams world. You can block it on Exchange on the mailbox itself. Block all meeting names or hide them. You can set them on Teams rooms, Android and Windows, to hide the names. And you can also set it on a Teams panel. So right here, it just says Serena Davis. It does not say acquisition of Tailspin Toys. If you see acquisition of Tailspin Toys, and we're a publicly traded company, maybe I'll buy stock in Tailspin Toys, and that's insider trading. So you may want to hide the meetings, but at least when people come in, they'll go, oh, it's Serena's hosting the meeting. I'm in the right room. This is the right meeting. So that has been added to Teams panels. Another thing on Teams panels, I think I'm just going to explain this because people I've talked to, I've seen people get confused on licensing and how Teams panels work and how you set them up. Teams panels can run on their own. You do not need to have Teams rooms anywhere in your environment at all. So there's no requirement that you have to have Teams rooms Windows or Teams rooms Androids in order for these. You can put these outside a cafeteria. You can put them outside a maintenance shed, but there's no equipment. Licensing-wise, we recommend that you use the meeting room standard license. Meeting room premium doesn't support these yet, so no reason to pay the up fee for that service. And then it is a resource account, so an Exchange resource account, just like Teams Rooms. Now, if you do have Teams Rooms windows inside, and you put a Teams panel outside, you use the exact same account on the panel as you do on Teams Rooms. So you sign in the same, and that makes sense because they both look at the same Exchange mailbox. So how does the panel know that a meeting is scheduled on Teams Rooms? It just looks in the same mailbox. And at that point, you don't have to create an account or license it because you already created the account and you're reusing the license from your Teams Rooms. So just to clarify real quick, you do not have to have Teams Rooms to run a Teams panel in any given space. However, if you do, you can save on licensing. You don't need to create a new account. All right, what's coming in on Teams Rooms? Wait, you asked a question and you didn't get a flavor shot. Sorry, I've been negligent in my duties. You did as well. Come on, let me throw a flavor shot at you. We'll get this little video, this little GIF started, and I'll talk through what's happening here. So intelligent camera. So we announced intelligent speaker and released it with our partners right now, EPOS, Yalink. I think off the top of my head, there's maybe 2 or 3 more. Apologize if I didn't name your favorite. And what intelligent speaker is able to do is you go into the Teams client, you record your voice, and then when you go into a meeting, it goes, hey, I know that's Michael Tressler speaking, not conference room 7 attendee. It knows who I am. We're doing the same thing for video. So what you see here, and I don't know if I can pause this. I can't. So we see here it's Michaela Lee in the lower left. Now look at this conference room attendee list. We know who's in that conference room. As it is today, it just says conference room Washington has joined the meeting. We don't know who's in that meeting room. Now we do. By using AI and, much like we do with intelligent speaker, we do a voice print, we do a face print. So we can match up the face in your Teams profile, all secured, all encrypted. And trust me, you can't get it out. I've been troubleshooting intelligent speaker, and I'm like, well, I was just talking to the devs. Can you just go on the back end and pull the voice prints to see the issue we've run into? Like, no, we can't do that. They can't do it on the back end. I can't export it either. So these are locked away. There's a whole different discussion about the security of these voice and face prints. Anyway, we can now see that there's 2 things to watch here. One, the intelligent camera and our AI, working with the partners, because the AI is on the cameras, knows that there are 4 people, knows who the 4 people in the room are, as opposed to just whatever. So that's really cool. The other thing that happens is here, there's 2 views coming out of that room. There's the panorama, which is the view we see today, a view of the entire conference room. But there's also individual segmented feeds for each person. So now we're going to show the panorama. So there's 1 camera in the room, or 2. I mean, there's 1 device, let's put it that way. It might be multiple lenses and things. But it can show the whole room, and then using AI, figure out who a person is, and show that there's multiple people, and then show, if you have the tracking set up, what their names are. Can you throw the box, pass the box back one, please? Hi.
Hi there. So with the intelligent camera and the facial recognition, is that a machine learning model? I mean, I can't imagine that it's going to be 100% effective just based off of one's team's.
So I don't know the exact
profile
details,
alone.
but Windows Hello is really good at telling my face from somebody who looks just like me.
Okay.
So I'm going to say the AI model is going to be really reliable.
Tested, tried, and true.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
I don't know hey, I got it there. All right. Oh, question up front.
Is there like a subset of Teams cameras and microphones that only do this, or?
Yes, the
Every
cameras
camera.
have not been, some of the cameras have been released. I believe and I'm going to get the model wrong, Poly E60, E70? E70 can do it. The Jabra Panicast can do it. There's 1 or 2 other cameras. I'm sure Yalink has one because they always have something. There's a few there, and there's more coming. So some of your existing cameras that you already have will do this, and then there's some new ones coming on the market that will do it.
Just a follow-up, is there like a specific naming title that we have to look at, like intelligent camera, or like when we look for products, right?
Where you'll end up doing it is if you go to docs.microsoft.com, right now in the Teams Rooms section, where we list all of our supported certified hardware, not the store, but there's a list, And like in those columns, we have like a tick box, like for cameras, does it support content camera? Like for the magic whiteboard. There's going to be most likely a section added for intelligent cameras. So like, do these cameras support the segmentation? There's a bottle opener for the Microsoft Teams users group, teamsug.com. We're doing it all virtually right now, Teams UG. But
Is there a plan for having that supported for all the meeting rooms eventually? Like any meeting room device that comes to you for certification? It will
I don't
automatically-
think it's going to be a requirement because there are some rooms that you don't need the expense. You don't need it. You don't need that feature. So this adds expense because there has to be intelligence and chips and logic built onto the camera that just costs more than using a simple webcam. So I don't think it's going to be a requirement of our devices.
Not a webcam, but like a meeting room device. or
Right.
meeting
No,
room
but I mean
device.
like a lot of meeting rooms don't need this feature. So why would we force a feature to increase the cost? That's not going to be used. So we'll try to balance, where you need the feature, you need this like intelligent speaker. Not all of them will support it because we do a lot with microphone arrays and the way it comes in and lots of math to figure out who the speaker is to match them with the voice print and go. And a lot of that happens on that speaker, that microphone. All right, that's intelligent camera. Dynamic view. So there's a couple things here. One, it's kind of cool how we resize the attendees in the meeting. But what we're really seeing here is active speakers. And so we already have active speaker technology. We can already kind of tell, the vendors do it, right? The cameras automatically pan. But on the team side, we're sprinkling AI on top to help remove false positives where we can detect them. So that means I'm eating and I'm creating noise, so my face is moving. Like I'm speaking, I'm making noise, but I'm not talking. That's what we're addressing here with kind of the dynamic view, is being able to tell the difference between someone who looks like they're talking or even whispering to someone versus someone who's actually talking and needs to be brought up to the front of the Teams display. So that's dynamic view. So basically it's an improvement on how we show the roster of active speakers within Teams rooms. Companion mode. So companion mode is the overarching name for this. I see it as room remote because I was kind of working on the tap and the previews on that. What companion mode is, so there's always been a companion mode on the Teams mobile device that works with Teams rooms. And that lets you like upload PowerPoints and like take a picture on your mobile and share it into the meeting and things like that. We're adding things such as the ability to do the remote control of the room from the phone. By the remote control of the room, I mean increase volume, decrease volume, mute, things like that. The things where you need to walk up and touch that console in the middle of the table on Teams Rooms Windows, or on Android, grab the remote, touch the screen, or touch the console. One, it's safer from COVID standpoint that this is my phone, I touch it, I lick it, nobody else does. So I don't have to worry about the console having gross cooties on it. That's one thing. The other thing is it also then lets you do things like sit not next to the console and move your PowerPoint slides forward and back, control those kind of things. You can send your emotions, like what we have in Teams Desktop now, the little applause, the thumbs up, the hearts, whatever those things are. You can send those things from your phone. So you can be in the meeting room and do these things. So a lot of these features, I just had a thought, so I'm moving to this side of the stage, it's a different thought. A lot of these features that we're adding to Teams devices, and we're talking Teams rooms here, both Android and Windows, are because due to the pandemic and work from home, people in the meeting room now feel disconnected, which is a complete flip from the way it used to be, that 8 people in the conference room, 2 people remote, the 2 of us feel disconnected from the meeting, right? Because everybody's in there, they're having their side conversations, and I'm just kind of like, hey, I'm over here. Well, now 8 people are remote, 2 are in the conference room, or 3 in the conference room. The people in the conference room are like, I can't send clappy applauses and thumbs up. I can't do all this. And why don't I get my face in a little square? I want to be in a little square. I don't want to be at the table and lost in oblivion, this big room. I'm this tiny head that you can't see. I want to be seen. So now the people in the conference room are the ones going, hey, wait a second. I want this cool stuff too. So that's where this companion mode, that's where these intelligent speakers, smart displays, all this is coming to basically, because everything's been flipped now, that the remote people have all the cool toys and the people in the conference room don't. So we're trying to even the playing ground that no matter if you're at home or in the conference room, you'll have access to all the features you expect to have. Casting is a new feature. How's this slide work? There we go. So we hit cast. It should be popped up. Just keep an eye on the left. Casting lets you walk into a Teams room, hit cast on your mobile device, Android or iOS, and share straight into the room. You don't have to create a meeting first. You don't have to be an employee of the company. You don't even have to be in it. You just walk in off the street and share. So on the left, we see the client experience. On the right, we see what Teams Rooms sees. So now, because of the way Android screen recording works, once you do this screen sharing, I can't capture that screen anymore. At least there's ways I need to do it. But anyway, you can see now like they're equal. This is coming to Windows Desktop, yes?
Is there any requirement for the monitor to support that?
No, it's not the monitor. This is Teams Rooms. We're just showing what Teams Rooms sees. So the monitor on the right behind it is, camera, speakers, microphones, Nook signed into Teams Rooms. So that is casting. So the idea again is frictionless ability to walk into a room, share your mobile screen, because so many of us do things off mobile. It solves the issue even if we're both back in the office. Like, hey, let's huddle around my phone. Or, okay, let me copy it up to like Google Drive and then wait for that to sync or sync it to OneDrive. Now we can look at my PC, or let me find a cable. Oh, I don't have a USB host PC mode cable, whatever, so I can share my screen. My Android device doesn't support HDMI out. Your iPhone does. Let me get it to you. Just all that is solved. Just walk in, go to the Teams client, click cast. It'll find the closest room that you're in through proximity join, which is a Bluetooth signal. So it listens for that Bluetooth signal, finds the closest room, and your Android or iOS device is shared into that room. Yeah, it's coming to at least Windows. I don't know about Mac OS. I don't have a date. It just was announced, and the main use case was people, a vendor coming in off the street to do that. Room remote, I already talked about. So here's a little video of how room remote works. Again, we do proximity joins. We join by adding the room. Wait for a moment. Here are the nearby rooms. So I pick whichever one I want to use, and now I join. Now this is like for standard meetings. This is not casting. This is a standard meeting going on. And once it connects to the room system, you'll see up at the top will come a message saying room remote right up here. So when you tap on room remote, I don't know if this video shows it. Oh, there we go. You can see now, I'll zoom in, we have video on, mic off, captions off, change the layouts, that's the display, like how the people are shown on the screens, volume up, volume down, and leave the meeting. That's what I was talking about, a better view of room remote. Available on iOS and Android. I don't believe it's on Windows or Mac OS.
You have to be a participant in that particular meeting to access this as a remote?
Yes. Yeah, I think you heard the question. Yeah, you have to join that meeting in order to do it. So how does this work? So casting and room remote, how do these work? So here's like, I said this session is 250-ish. So it's a little higher than 200. Here's our first one. So the Teams Rooms is on the right. It sends out a Bluetooth. Why is this animation isn't working the way it's supposed to? Play. There we go. There's the animation. So it sends out a Bluetooth low energy beacon. And then your mobile device or whatever listens for that. And at some point, click, oops, back. There you go, whatever. Space. Anyway, so there then your mobile device hears 2 or 3 different devices. In this example, it's Teams Rooms and Surface Hub, because Surface Hub supports casting and at least room remote. I think both. Not a Surface Hub session. But anyway, so you hear, but Surface Hub will also do the Bluetooth beaconing for the features it supports. And Teams Rooms will then listen to that. You select which one you want to connect to. At this point, in this case I chose MTR1 is what I want to connect to. And at this point, everything goes through Teams. in the cloud. You are not casting directly from your device to Teams rooms. You're not doing remote control changes, turning the volume up and down from your device directly to Teams rooms. It goes up via the cloud. So there's a few things that need to be supported here. That is, the mobile device needs internet access. Now, the cool thing about this, especially with casting, is if you're a guest, if you're not an employee, you can still cast because you just need to get to the internet. I don't need to be on your Wi-Fi. I don't need a Wi-Fi guest account. I just need to be able to see that Bluetooth beacon and connect to the internet. Everything else, every time on my mobile phone when I click on Bing to bring up an article or share a PowerPoint, it goes up through the Teams service. There is no direct communication between your mobile device and any Teams Rooms device. Okay, endpoint management. This is where we start getting 300-ish. This is where we get a little more complicated. The meeting room license is Azure Active Directory P1 has just been added. Applause, anyone? No? No one excited about P1 being added? What does this give us for those who didn't applaud because you don't know what all this means? It gives us mobile device manager auto enrollment, conditional access, and dynamic groups. What are these things? So I'm going to dig into conditional access a little later, but what it lets you do is in Azure Active Directory, start doing some automation on your Teams devices. So if you take Teams rooms, if you start them all with the word MTR, like MTR-conf room 1, MTR-conf room 2, you can then go in Azure Active Directory and say, I want to, anytime a machine is joined to my domain, and it starts with MTR-, add it to this group. Now that we're in this group, what are we going to do with it? Well, auto-assign a meeting room license to it. So don't do it over in Azure Administrator, admin.microsoft.com. Don't do it over there. Just as soon as the machine shows up, assign the license to it. May or may not want to do that, but you can do that. Automatically apply these conditional access policies to it. What IP address is it coming from, blah, 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 to make sure it signs in correctly. We'll get into the blah, blah, blahs later. So it really helps greatly in management of these devices, and most importantly, security and controlling these devices. So very important feature. So as we start moving towards the technical talk, let's talk about how we update Teams Rooms devices. And you'll hear the term firmware updates. And what exactly is a firmware update and how does this all work? Microsoft writes 3 applications: Admin Agent, Teams App, Company Portal. Admin Agent is an application that gets data off the device, a phone, Teams display panel, and shoves it up to Teams Admin Center. And it takes commands from Teams Admin Center and does things like restart or apply a new compliance policy or whatever, configuration policy. That's what Admin Agent does. It talks to Teams Admin Center. The Teams app is the money app. This is what does anything. You make phone calls, join meetings. This is Teams. And Company Portal, which if you work at a company that uses Intune, you should be familiar with Company Portal. It's the Intune application. Now these are, in Android parlance, APKs. They're individual standalone applications. Much like, we'll go then the vendors, whatever the OEM, they have their app so they can talk to their management system, right? Every one of our vendor partners has their own management solution. And so they then write that application, which does similar to Admin Agent, but they can add more features or do what they want to do with that application. You bundle all that together, and that's called firmware. Now, also down here, firmware also includes Android, down at this level. So Android 8, Android 9, updates to Android. This is exactly like your mobile phone. If you're an Android person, even if you're iOS, it's the same thing. There's that base iOS operating system, and there's apps. Each one of these apps can be updated individually. You do not need a full firmware update to update the Teams app. Just like on your mobile phone, right? You go to I'm an Android guy, I've already told you 1,000 times, so I'll stay with that. I go to the Play Store, I click on my face, go to the apps, and I can update whatever apps are waiting, or within a day or two, they'll auto-update. Same basic concept. It's the same thing, it's Android. So that's firmware. The vendors, by the way, our OEM vendors are responsible for these 2 pieces. the OEM app, if they choose to have one, and the build of Android, because they're responsible for the drivers for the cameras, speakers, microphones, other peripherals. They write Android, they build the Android and put into that what is needed to run that phone or that Teams display. They send it to us. They send that firmware to us, to Microsoft. We certify it, make sure that they didn't do anything, there's no bugs or anything in there. If so, we put it in this wonderful thing called blob storage. We then work with the vendor for version control. And version control basically means we will not offer a Teams app version update if the firmware is too old, right? We're going to stay lockstep. So we have version control to make sure we're not going to cause trouble by pushing a new Teams application onto a version of Android that doesn't support it. Anyway, at that point, it then shows up in Teams Admin Center. And you'll see in here, if you can read it, one update available. Administrator clicks on that. The update gets sent to the phone. In this case, the phone installs the firmware or the application. Upon success, it sends a signal back to Teams Admin Center saying, hey, I've been updated. Sign in and registration. How does this work? I'm trying to help for some of you guys. I know this might be technical for some of you, but I'm trying to help you understand how does sign in work on a phone device, because it works a little differently than on Teams and elsewhere. So depending on whatever device you are, so we have phone, display, Teams Rooms, panel. This is Teams Rooms Android. This is all Android talk, by the way. Teams Rooms Windows is different. This is Teams Rooms Android. So we're in Android land here. The sign-in happens via the company portal app, not via something else. So Intune immediately fires up. So when you go on the phone and you punch in your username and password, that goes to the Intune app. The Intune app then goes to Azure Active Directory and validates the username and password. If necessary, let me rephrase that. After you've signed in successfully, you are passed over to Intune. Even if you're not licensed for Intune, you're passed over to Intune. And the reason is this. This is a change we made a few months ago, which has caused a lot of noise, and that's why I'm bringing this slide here to understand. We send it to Intune because if your phone or your display or whatever goes against a policy that would reject the sign-in of that device, we will reject the sign-in of the device, even if you are not Intune licensed. So, Bob or Alice signs in here. Bob or Alice provides the correct username and password. Alice, she does not have an Intune license. She still goes through this process. If her phone, hypothetically, is on an old version of firmware that Intune is blocking, she cannot sign in even though she does not have an Intune license. You as an administrator need to fix that either by changing the firmware to allow it or creating a whole new path for unlicensed people or for your phones. It's basically her phone device isn't coming in for a good reason. Terry, you have a question? We need the boom box. Back to Terry.
An intelligent error message that the user receives?
No, but the administrator, the question was there an intelligent error message that the user receives? No, but on the phone, it'll say Microsoft Intune. So that gives you a clue where you're paused in where you got rejected. Doesn't say why. You didn't get rejected because compliance policy blocked this, because the phone doesn't necessarily get that. The phone just gets reject or permit or deny. You'll have to go to the Intune logs to see the exact reason. Oh, Terry, you need a prize. So, after we do Intune pass, we then go to Azure Active Directory and do our workplace join. So now the device shows up in the Devices tab in Azure Active Directory. Oh, thanks. At this point, Azure AD has created a token. That token is then handed to the Teams app, and now you're signed into Teams. Now, one thing about token to keep in mind here, unlike Teams Rooms on Windows, Teams Android devices do not store usernames and passwords. They receive a token and store the token for future sign-ins. That's how sign-in works. Now, we're getting Intune. I'm going to try to make this as high level as possible. Terry basically asked, and I mentioned, so together it answers, I guess, a little of both. How do we handle this Intune issue for phones. And the issue really is, how do we tell the difference between my Google Pixel Android phone and a Teams display or a Teams panel? How can we, we want different policies assigned to end users, because end users will they can install anything on these phones. I mean, depending on how you lock it down. They can cause all kinds of chaos. But a phone that my company bought that does a single task, like meeting rooms, we want to lock that down. So how do we handle that? Can we do both? And yes, we can do both using a new feature, and it's also in conditional access, called filters for devices in preview. And the two here in purple are the ones that apply to this discussion for Teams devices. Manufacturer and model. We don't care about any of these other ones. So now we can create a list that says, well, if it's a poly this, or a YaLink that, or an audio codes the other, or a job or whatever, ePause, I'm trying to remember all of them, so I don't leave anyone out. I'm sure I just did. Send them to a different policy, as opposed to before it was, if it's an Android device, send them somewhere. So in this example, we're going to create a filter, and if the device model, because remember we saw make and model are the two things we can filter on, if it includes the term CCX600, let's now go and assign some things to it, and then let's assign a policy. So the policy will basically say, like, you have to be not rooted, and you have to be Android 9 or later. All right, that'd be the policy. Now, step 3, let's evaluate that policy. This CCX600 that just came in, is that on Android 9 or later? It's Android 8, no sign in. It's Android 9, let's go to the next process. And then ultimately you get signed in, reporting happens, you can go into Intune, see the history of who got signed in, what got signed in, who didn't get in, for what the reason. So that's what the devices preview lets you do. So instead of just saying, is it Android, what make and model of Android is coming in? So here, by the way, for the people who do want the 300 level stuff, this is the first time anyone at Microsoft has presented these slides in North America. So comms VNext exclusive. Coming to you live from Denver, Colorado. Shared devices conditional access. So what we do here is, let's just talk through things. So first thing is conditional access. Conditional access happens at Azure Active Directory. That's Azure AD P1. That's the free entitlement we just gave everyone, or we're giving to you. If you don't have it yet, you'll have it by the end of November. So we're going to do some conditional access things. Now the Intune stuff, if you want it to work right, you need the license. But let's talk through how conditional access works. Because when I started learning this, I thought conditional access was part of Intune, and it's not. So if you just want the free P1 features, it'll be in this middle box, a box on the right for the Intune stuff will show up to let you kind of visually see the differences between them. So we're going to have a devices group. So we're just basically going to list all of our CCXs and whatever. We're going to limit it via conditional access. In conditional access, are you accessing Exchange, Teams, or SharePoint? Now this is at the Android line. This is you still trying to sign in, right? This is the phase of, I typed in my username and password onto the phone, I hit enter. If you remember that one drawing, the first thing we do is go to Azure AD, and then conditional access pops in. If I'm taking a common area phone account, and I'm trying to sign into bookings, which Sean Wilson just talked about, they'll be blocked immediately by conditional access. You won't be able to sign in. So even if you take that account, go to a Windows desktop, sign into bookings, no. Conditional access. You have to go to one of these 3, and that's what Teams needs. And specifically, Teams devices only need these 3. Are you coming in from an Android device? So if I take that common area phone account and I'm signing in on Windows, I missed that one too. I have to sign in on Android. Now I could try to work around it by using my mobile phone. Let's see what happens. Next, all trusted locations. So within conditional access, we can put in the list of all public IPs we expect that sign in to come from. Now generally that's going to be your office or offices. Like we know this common area phone belongs in building 2. Building 2's public IP address is 1.1.1.2. If this account tries to sign in from 10.97. blah, 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 denied. Even though it's the correct username and password. By the way, this is all stuff Azure AD does that on-prem Active Directory doesn't. So as we have these conversations about Teams Rooms accounts, we make them on-prem and AAD sync them. I'm like, why? It's a cloud-only solution. Plus, you get all these free security features thrown in for free. It's more secure than AD. Make these accounts cloud only. Sorry. If you're in one of those situations, I'm not trying to make fun of you, but I'm like, just get there, push your security account to get there. It's so much easier and better. And then ultimately, we're going to device scope it on, is it a CCX 600? So if I come in on a, pick your favorite not CCX 600 phone, that gets denied immediately. So that's what conditional access does for you. It'll block all this down. And by the way, this is in, I put this in new Teams devices because this is a new, because it's in preview. So hopefully I didn't stretch it too much. Now, if all these conditions work, all this is good, grant the access, and then go. Now, we can layer in, if we want, not required, Intune. Teams rooms, the meeting room standard license includes Intune. Your phone devices, end users may not have an Intune license. So if you're doing Teams rooms Android, and you assign, or the Teams panels, and you assign a meeting room standard, you'll get this. Now, you get the Intune license. If it's an end user, depends on if they're E3, E5, or not. If you have Intune licensed or not, we'll actually run through these other checks. So minimum OS of 5.0, that is the oldest Teams device is 5.0. We really recommend you go to like 9.0, 8 or 9.0. Talk to your vendor what their oldest version is that's in your estate and set it to that. So basically, we can get then, like, is the device rooted? It certainly shouldn't be rooted because you're getting a certified image from Microsoft or directly from the vendor. So that shouldn't be a rooted image. It should be nice, securely locked down. If all of this passes, you're then signed into Teams. Oops, that's my last slide. So any questions, because this wasn't the whole thing, any questions on conditional access, Intune, and how it relates to Teams devices, and especially this new feature? Microphone, where's the microphone hiding? Do I have it? Oh, I've got it. Can you bounce it over to him? Thanks.
Any plans of increasing the number of registered devices per user from 15 to 1,500 for admins?
So, in Azure Active Directory, an end user is allowed to sign in 50 times, I believe is the default.
Yeah, but you can
Yeah,
increase it to unlimited, but on Intune.
Yeah, give me a moment. I believe it's Intune, it defaults to 5.
Yeah.
The recommendation is, okay, you don't have to change that, but the recommendation is if you're using hot desking or you just hand out a lot of devices to certain people, increase that value to 10 to 15 to whatever, because what's not mentioned in here is if it's set to 5 and I'm signing in on the 6th device, my sign-in will be rejected as well. So yes, you can definitely go into Intune, and we do recommend it. It's published in docs to increase that value, especially if you're using hot desking.
But 15 is maximum, right?
I don't know what the maximum is.
Yeah.
Anybody know what the maximum is on Intune? Is it 15? So I don't know if we're going to increase it, but
Because admins face that every time, and then they have to delete it from their registered devices.
Yeah.
To have, again,
it shouldn't be an issue because 15. I mean, getting up to 15 devices, not using hot desking is really hard.
No, but admins, they test different
Yeah.
accounts. And
I don't have an answer. Put in a change request. Beyond 15. Any other questions? No? Yes. Okay. Can we, mic behind you, please?
So what is Microsoft doing to address the Teams phones devices and the sluggish UI?
We don't have a sluggish UI. What's sluggish? Yeah, heck, yeah, give me that candy back. You don't get candy for that question. I've heard stories that there is a lot of, the main sluggish UI that I've heard lately is on the home screen, that it's slow to bring up and it's slow to work on. There is, I've heard, because I'm not, by the way, I'm not in device engineering, right? I'm an old PFE, customer engineer. Like, I don't help build and design these things, okay? So just to be clear, I'm not invited to the meetings where they discuss these. But I have been on a call and somebody said they're very much aware of it and there's a high focus being put on in update 3 or update 4. I think update 2 is out now. Update 3 or update 4 will fix that. We're on 4. Update 4 will fix that.
And to piggyback on that, this isn't device manufacturer specific, but staying on the Teams phones, I mean, there's a lot of chatter in the market out there around just overall delay in call audio delay.
That's being addressed in updates 3 and updates 4. But if you do that, come up to me afterwards and tell me exactly what you're talking about, and I'll see if I can follow up with engineering if they know about it.
Sure. Thank you.
On the common area phones, is a way to lock it down so no one else could log on to it?
Yes. So I don't have a slide on this, but let me just bring up a UI. It's going to be a million backwards clicks. There are 3 user interfaces, especially on phones. There's really 2 on Teams rooms, but there's 3 on Teams phones. And the 3 modes are, I don't think I have a view, do I, of just a phone? Do I have a picture of just a phone? I didn't, did I? All right. Yeah, there you go. There's a rewind. So there's 3 user interfaces that we have. End user interface, common area interface, and meeting interface. So how do you get one of those interfaces? Well, the easiest way is to sign a license. So if you sign it like E3, E5, you get the user interface. If you assign a common area license, you get the common area phone interface. If you assign a meeting room standard or meeting room premium, you get the meeting room interface. What's different on those interfaces? Well, a meeting room interface will just immediately show the calendar view because you're going to join meetings. You're not going to make phone calls. You're not going to search the directory. End user interface, you get everything. Address book, voicemail, etc. You get all that. Common area interface, you basically get a stripped down just the phone dialer. So you don't get the home landing page. You get a dialer, basically, is what happens. Beyond just the visual interface, the common area phone and the end user ones remove. The common area phone and Teams Rooms ones remove things from the settings menu. One of the things removed in common area phone is sign out. If you're seeing sign out under a quote-unquote common area phone, there's 2 ways to fix that. 1, assign a common area phone license. 2, run a PowerShell, create a PowerShell policy using the new CS Teams IP phone policy. Thank you. IP calling policy, IP phone calling policy. Yeah, that one. Create a new policy that says anyone with this policy gets the common area phone interface regardless of their license. So a lot of companies, we bought like 10,000 E3 licenses, we're only using 9,000. We're not going to buy additional common area phone licenses. We're just going to slap E3s to an account called Common Area 1. And then you run into a situation where it's like, well, they shouldn't be able to sign out. So check back. If you're seeing sign out on your common area phones, and there's a docs article, search Bing for user mode Teams phone. And that should get you the first hit to an article for how to do that. Here, have some candy. You can share. It's Halloween. Any other questions about phones or devices or life in general? We have 51 seconds.
Thanks. So some of the views that we saw, did they require front row to work, intelligent cameras, the various views that we saw?
Sorry, what? Some of the
views that we saw of the
Yeah.
UA, like dynamic view, I think, and some, do they require front, and like the intelligent cameras, everybody getting their own
Yeah.
individual square?
So those will just roll out. So front row is a whole different thing than that. That's just a different display where it puts people down at the bottom. And that's going to roll out later than some of these features. To use those advanced features that I showed, you will need an intelligent camera, which you may already have.
So intelligent camera today, or when they come into production, allows individuals to have their own.
Yeah, that's where you then get that segmented video where you see a view, like right now, I see the whole room, but then there could be like 40 different, depending on what the camera can do. Active speaker, probably 5 the 5 most recent speakers. It'll find them and then ship them as individual feeds. So when I'm sitting at home using my desktop client, I see not just the whole room, I see the whole room and or the individual speakers.
Okay, thanks.
All right. We'll stop it there. That's at 0 seconds. So thank you, everyone. If you want candy, come on up. There's candy in the front. Thanks, everyone. And just for fun,